The Awakening. The morning sun cast long shadows across Novus Prime's central plaza as Governor Maya Santos reviewed the colony's quarterly reports. 6 years of peaceful development had transformed what was once a barren, rocky planet into humanity's most promising frontier world. She smiled, watching families stroll through the hydroponic gardens, while construction drones buzzed overhead, assembling the framework for a new science complex. "Another perfect day in paradise," remarked Deputy Governor Ishiro, joining her at the observation platform. The agricultural sector exceeded projections by 12% this quarter. "At this rate, we'll be exporting food to the inner systems by next year." Maya nodded, feeling the familiar pride that came with being responsible for 15,000 colonists who had journeyed 20 light-years from Earth seeking a fresh start. Novus Prime represented the best of modern humanity, collaborative, scientific, and dedicated to peaceful expansion. The education complex is requesting additional funding for their xenobiology department, Maya said, swiping through her datapad. Apparently, they've discovered several promising microbial species in the northern continent that might revolutionize our medical technologies. Their conversation was interrupted by a sharp beeping from Maya's communication implant. She frowned. Priority alerts were rare on Novus Prime. "Governor," came the urgent voice of Orbital Control Officer Lee. "We're detecting multiple unidentified vessels approaching from the outer system. They're not responding to hails and are moving at high velocity toward the colony." Maya's stomach tightened. How many vessels? 17 distinct signatures, nothing matching any registered human design. The words hung in the air between them. In the century since humanity had expanded beyond their home system, they had encountered only pre-sentient life forms. The concept of an advanced alien civilization was theoretical at best, until now. "Sound the colony alert," Maya ordered, already striding toward the administration building. "Activate our defensive systems and prepare evacuation protocols. I want all civilians in emergency shelters within 30 minutes." Warning sirens echoed across the settlement as Maya assembled her crisis team in the colony's modest command center. The room, designed more for coordinating construction projects than military operations, now buzzed with nervous energy as technicians frantically tracked the approaching vessels. "Visual contact established," announced Officer Lee, his voice strained. The main screen flickered to life, revealing sleek, obsidian vessels with protruding structures that resembled organic growths more than mechanical components. "Are they slowing?" Maya asked, studying the strange ships. "No, Governor. They're accelerating and have deployed smaller craft. Trajectory analysis suggests they're positioning for an orbital bombardment." The words had barely registered when the first impact hit. The command center shuddered, emergency lights flashing as power fluctuated. Outside, a blinding flash illuminated the colony as one of the agricultural domes collapsed, vaporized by energy weapons unlike anything humans had developed. "Casualties reported in sectors 7 through 9, reported the colony's medical chief, her face ashen. "Our defensive systems are ineffective. The shields are failing after a single hit." Maya gripped the command console, fighting to maintain her composure as reports of destruction flooded in. Novus Prime had been built for peace. Their defensive systems were little more than meteor deflection shields and emergency protocols. Nothing that could withstand a determined attack. "Governor," called Specialist Tran from the communication station, "we can't maintain our quantum link to Earth. They're jamming our signals." Maya nodded grimly. Even if they could get a message through, Earth was 20 light-years away. Help would arrive long after Novus Prime was reduced to ashes. "We have to evacuate," urged Deputy Ishiro. "The emergency shuttles would be shot down immediately," Maya finished. "We need to buy time." She closed her eyes briefly, remembering something from the initial planetary survey, something that had been deemed irrelevant to a peaceful colony. "What about the mountain facility?" she asked, turning to their chief archaeologist, Dr. Remus. The older man looked startled. "The pre-collapse installation. It's been sealed for over 300 years, Governor. We haven't even properly surveyed it. But it's there, Maya insisted. And it was military, wasn't it? Dr. Remus hesitated. Yes. According to the limited records we recovered, it appears to be a remnant from the Resource Wars era, before the Great Unification. But Governor, that technology is ancient. It would be like trying to fight with museum pieces. Another impact rocked the building, sending dust cascading from the ceiling. The main screen showed 3 more colony domes breached, fires spreading across the settlement. We have nothing else, Maya said decisively. Dr. Remus, gather whatever data you have on the facility. Officer Lee, assemble a team. We leave in 5 minutes. The hypercycles raced across the rugged landscape, carrying Maya and her small team toward the mountain range that dominated the northern horizon. Behind them, columns of smoke rose from the devastated colony as alien ships continued their methodical destruction. There, Dr. Remus pointed to a sheer cliff face ahead. According to the survey data, the entrance should be concealed somewhere along that ridge. They approached cautiously, scanning the weathered rock until Officer Lee's equipment beeped. I'm detecting unusual material composition here, definitely artificial. It took them nearly 20 precious minutes to locate the hidden access panel, and another 10 for Dr. Remus to decipher the ancient authorization protocols. When the massive doors finally groaned open, stale air rushed out from a darkness untouched for centuries. Maya activated her light as they ventured inside, revealing a massive complex carved into the mountain itself. Unlike the sleek, minimal aesthetics of modern human architecture, this facility was imposing. All hard angles, reinforced barricades, and utilitarian design. This was from the final phase of the Resource Wars, Dr. Remus explained, his voice echoing in the cavernous space. When Earth's nations were fighting over the last accessible deposits of rare elements, they built remote bases like this throughout the early colony systems. Why wasn't this in our official briefing? Maya asked, examining the ancient military insignias that adorned the walls. Dr. Remus looked uncomfortable. After unification, humanity chose to move beyond its militaristic past. These installations were abandoned, not demolished out of respect for history, but deliberately forgotten. Modern colonies aren't supposed to need military infrastructure. They pushed deeper into the facility, using emergency power cells to activate ancient lighting systems. The complex seemed to extend for kilometers into the mountain, with multiple levels housing what appeared to be barracks, armories, and command centers. "This is incredible," whispered Deputy Oshiro, as they entered a massive chamber filled with what appeared to be dormant machinery. "I've only seen things like this in historical archives." Maya approached a central console, its surface covered in dust. Unlike the touch interfaces of modern technology, this featured physical buttons and switches, designed to function even under the most extreme conditions. "Can we get power to any of this?" she asked. Officer Lee examined the systems. "Maybe. There appears to be an independent fusion reactor. If it's been properly preserved, we might be able to initiate a startup sequence." "Do it," Maya ordered. While Lee and his technical team worked on the power systems, Maya explored further, finding herself in what appeared to be the command center. Unlike the elegant open spaces of modern administrative facilities, this room was designed for warfare. Multiple hardened stations faced a central strategic display, with reinforced walls and redundant systems everywhere. Her communicator chimed with an incoming transmission from the colony. She activated it to hear the desperate voice of one of her staff. "Governor, they've landed ground forces. They're not taking prisoners. Anyone they find is being executed. We've lost contact with most sectors." Maya closed her eyes, feeling the weight of thousands of lives pressing down on her. "Hold out as long as you can. We're working on a solution." "Power restoration at 30%, called Officer Lee from the reactor room. "Basic systems coming online." Throughout the facility, ancient screens flickered to life, displaying boot sequences and initialization protocols. In the command center, the strategic display illuminated, showing a three-dimensional rendering of the planet and surrounding space. The alien vessels appeared as red markers, their positions updated in real time through some connection to remaining colony sensors. They built these places to last, Dr. Remus said quietly, examining a newly activated terminal. This installation appears to be designated Outpost Sentinel. According to these files, it was designed as a rapid response base in case of hostile alien contact. Maya looked at him sharply. They anticipated this. Not specifically, but they prepared for the possibility. 3 centuries ago, humanity was more pragmatic about the potential dangers of space exploration. A deep rumbling vibrated through the facility as more systems activated. In a chamber they hadn't yet explored, mechanical arms began moving, servicing equipment that had waited in darkness for centuries. "Governor," called one of the technicians. "I found something. There's a communication system here, but it's not standard. It doesn't connect to the colony network or any known frequencies." Maya joined him at the unusual console. Unlike other systems, this one featured additional security measures and was isolated from the main network. "It's a quantum entanglement array," Dr. Remus said, examining the equipment with growing excitement. "Theoretical in our time, but apparently functional during the late resource wars. Distance doesn't affect transmission. It could potentially reach Earth instantly." "Can we use it?" Maya asked. "Possibly, but it would only connect to its paired receiver, if that receiver no longer exists." "Try it anyway," she ordered. The technician activated the system, which hummed to life with surprising responsiveness. A simple message interface appeared on the screen. Maya didn't hesitate. She typed, "No views prime, under ATTCK by UNK alien forces. Colony DVA stated, casualties CVR. No defensive capability. Requesting immediate ASI stance." After a moment's thought, she added, "MESSAG CNTF from Outpost Sentinel, using emergency protocols." She pressed the transmission key, and the message disappeared into the quantum void. For several long seconds, nothing happened. Then the console chimed, a response appearing on the screen. "Authentication verified. Emergency protocol immediately activated. Response units deploying. Hold position." Maya stared at the message in disbelief. "Response units? What does that mean? Who did we just contact?" Before Dr. Remus could answer, the facility came fully alive around them. Lights blazed at maximum intensity, and the rumbling from the lower levels intensified. The strategic display in the command center suddenly zoomed out, showing not just the immediate space around Novus Prime, but the entire star system. New markers appeared at the system's edge, blue indicators moving at impossible speeds toward the planet. "Governor," Officer Lee called from the command center, his voice filled with awe. "You need to see this." They rushed back to find the strategic display tracking the blue markers as they closed rapidly on the alien fleet. Officer Lee had patched into the colony's remaining observation systems, displaying visual feeds on secondary screens. What they saw defied explanation. Massive vessels of unmistakably human design, but unlike any ships in the modern fleet, decelerated into the system. They were angular, bristling with weapons emplacements, their hulls marked with faded military insignias. "Those are warships," Dr. Remus whispered. "Real warships, not the patrol vessels or exploration ships we use now. But they can't possibly still exist." All military vessels were demilitarized after unification. The ancient console chimed again with an incoming transmission. "Outpost Sentinel. This is Admiral Kathy Ryan Vigye, Commander of DGK Guardian Fleet. We received your distress SKL and are moving to engage hostile forces. Stand by for ground TM deployment." As they watched in stunned silence, the newly arrived human vessels opened fire on the alien ships. Unlike the ineffective defenses of the colony, these weapons cut through the alien shields with devastating precision. The invaders, caught completely by surprise, scrambled to regroup. "Who are they?" Maya asked, watching as the tide of battle visibly shifted. "Where did they come from?" Dr. Remus's expression was a mixture of shock and realization. After the resource wars, when humanity unified and embraced peace, not everyone agreed with dismantling our military capabilities. There were factions who believed we would eventually face threats from beyond our borders, threats that would require more than diplomatic protocols to address. The ground beneath them trembled as something massive approached the mountain facility. External cameras showed heavy transport vessels landing on the plateau outside, their designs as aggressive and utilitarian as the installation itself. "It seems," Dr. Remus continued quietly, "that while humanity publicly embraced peace, someone maintained a hidden guardian force, keeping watch over colonies like ours, waiting for the day their services might be needed." The facility's main doors began cycling open as atmospheric pressure equalized. From the darkness beyond, Maya heard the disciplined footsteps of multiple individuals approaching, the unmistakable cadence of military personnel. "Governor Santos," came a crisp voice as a woman in a uniform not seen for centuries stepped into the light, flanked by armed soldiers whose weapons and armor made modern security forces look like children playing at defense. "Admiral Catherine Vega, Guardian Fleet. I understand you have an alien problem that requires our attention." Maya stared at this unexpected salvation, realizing that everything she thought she knew about human history and the peaceful exploration. "The Guardians rise." Admiral Catherine Vega strode through Outpost Sentinel with the confidence of someone returning to familiar territory. Her uniform, dark blue with silver insignias that depicted Earth surrounded by protective stars, was immaculately maintained despite its ancient design. Behind her followed a dozen officers, each moving with the disciplined precision that had been largely forgotten in modern civilian society. "Status report," she commanded, entering the command center and immediately claiming the central position, as if she'd been designed for it. Governor Maya Santos watched, momentarily speechless, as these strangers took control of the installation with practiced efficiency. The contrast between her crisis team, scientists and administrators fumbling with unfamiliar military systems, and these newcomers who operated the ancient technology with intuitive ease was stark. "Admiral," Maya finally said, stepping forward, "I appreciate your assistance, but I need to understand exactly who you are and where you came from." Vega regarded her with steel-gray eyes that seemed to evaluate Maya's worth in an instant. "The complete briefing will have to wait, Governor. Your colony is still under attack, and my primary mission is to neutralize the threat." She turned to one of her officers. "Commander Chen, deploy ground teams to the colony. Priority is civilian evacuation and securing any data cores. The Vorax will be searching for information about our other settlements." "The Vorax," Maya repeated. "The species currently attempting to eradicate your people," Vega replied, her attention shifting to the strategic display. "We've encountered them twice before in other sectors. They're expansionists who consider preemptive genocide an efficient territorial acquisition strategy." On the main display, the battle in orbit continued. 7 massive human warships engaged the alien fleet, their coordinated attacks devastating against the previously unstoppable invaders. The alien vessels, the Vorax ships, were retreating to a defensive formation, clearly unprepared for this level of resistance. "Tactical analysis suggests they expected minimal opposition," said a tall officer who introduced himself as Strategic Officer Dominic Reed. "Standard Vorax procedure is to eliminate communications first, then methodically destroy infrastructure and population centers. They didn't anticipate a military response of this magnitude." Maya struggled to process what she was witnessing. How is this possible? Earth dismantled its military centuries ago after unification. These ships shouldn't exist. Admiral Vega exchanged glances with her senior officers before responding. "Officially, you're correct. The public historical record indicates that humanity embraced peace, converted its warships to exploration vessels, and committed to nonviolent expansion. That narrative served its purpose, allowing most of humanity to pursue its idealistic vision without the burden of maintaining constant vigilance. "You're saying it was a lie?" Deputy Ashiro asked, his voice rising. "A necessary omission," Vega corrected. After the resource wars, humanity was exhausted by conflict. The unification movement promised a future without warfare, and people desperately wanted to believe it was possible. But some leaders, those who had studied history and understood the harsh realities of existence, recognized that abandoning our defensive capabilities entirely would be suicidal. She gestured to the battle displayed on the screen. The Guardian Initiative was established in secret. Select military personnel, ships, and installations were preserved, placed in hibernation, hidden throughout human-controlled space. We maintain minimal active personnel, rotating duty assignments, while most of our forces remain in cryogenic suspension, waiting for precisely this scenario. "An alien attack," Maya said quietly. "Yes. For 3 centuries, we've watched from the shadows as humanity expanded peacefully across the stars. We've monitored every potential threat, quietly eliminating smaller dangers before civilian authorities even became aware of them. The Vorax, however, represent a threat beyond our capacity for preemptive action." The facility shuddered as what sounded like thunder rolled across the mountains. On the tactical display, one of the Vorax capital ships disintegrated under concentrated fire from 3 Guardian vessels. "We're winning," Officer Lee observed with cautious optimism. "This battle, perhaps," Vega said grimly. "But the Vorax are highly adaptable and control significant resources. They'll analyze our capabilities and return with countermeasures. This is merely the first engagement in what will likely be a protracted conflict." Maya's communication implant chimed with an incoming message from the colony. "Governor, this is Medical Officer Patel. We have soldiers here. They're evacuating civilians to secure locations and fighting the alien ground forces." "Who are these people?" "They're with us," Maya responded, watching as more tactical data streamed across the command center displays. "Cooperate fully with them." "The Vorax ground forces are being contained," Commander Chen reported, reviewing incoming field reports. "Our troops have secured the central administration sector and 3 residential zones. Civilian casualties are significant, but we're extracting survivors." Maya closed her eyes briefly, the weight of those lost lives pressing down on her conscience. When she opened them again, her expression had hardened with resolve. "What happens next, Admiral?" "We secure this system, establish a defensive perimeter, and prepare for their return," Vega replied matter-of-factly. "Meanwhile, additional Guardian forces are being awakened throughout human space. The Vorax targeted your colony first, but they'll have scouting parties assessing other settlements as well." Dr. Remus, who had been quietly observing from a corner of the command center, finally spoke. "You've been preparing for this for 300 years, maintaining a secret military while the rest of humanity believed we had moved beyond warfare." "Precisely," Vega confirmed without apology. "Your peaceful existence was protected by our vigilance. We are the guardians who stand watch in the darkness, so that the rest of humanity can pursue its enlightened ideals in safety." "And now," Maya asked, "the secret is exposed. These colonists have seen your ships, your soldiers. Earth will learn of your existence." Vega nodded solemnly. "Yes. After 3 centuries, the Guardian Initiative will emerge from the shadows. Humanity must now reconcile its peaceful aspirations with the reality that there are predators among the stars. Your people wanted to believe the galaxy was benign, that advanced civilizations would naturally embrace cooperation over conflict. The Vorax have demonstrated otherwise." The strategic display updated again, showing the last Vorax vessels jumping to faster-than-light travel, retreating from the system. A cheer went up from the colonial staff, quickly silenced by the grim expressions of the Guardian officers. "They'll be back," Commander Chen stated flatly. and in greater numbers, which is why we need to work quickly, Vega responded. She turned to Maya. Governor, I need complete access to your colony's databases, communication systems, and remaining infrastructure. My people will begin constructing defensive emplacements immediately. Novus Prime has just become the front line in humanity's first interstellar war in 3 centuries. By nightfall, the Guardian forces had established a secure perimeter around what remained of the colony. 3 massive warships maintained orbit, while the others had deployed to the system's edge, establishing sensor networks to provide early warning of the Vorax's return. Military shuttles continued to ferry equipment and personnel from the ships to the surface, transforming the once peaceful settlement into an armed camp. Maya stood on the roof of the partially damaged administration building, watching as Guardian engineers erected defense turrets and shield generators where community gardens had been just that morning. The surviving colonists, less than 10,000 of the original 15,000, had been gathered in the intact sectors, many still in shock from the brutality they had witnessed. It's quite a change, Admiral Vega said, joining Maya at the railing. She had exchanged her formal uniform for combat fatigues, though her bearing remained impeccably military. Your people will adapt, though. Humans are remarkably resilient. These people came here to build a new society, Maya replied, her voice tight with suppressed emotion. They were scientists, farmers, teachers, not soldiers. They never consented to being on the front lines of a war. The Vorax didn't ask for their consent before attacking, Vega pointed out. War rarely waits for permission, Governor. It simply arrives. Maya turned to face the Admiral directly. You knew this would happen eventually. You and your Guardians. You've been waiting for centuries for an enemy to appear and justify your existence. If the accusation stung, Vega showed no sign of it. We hoped we would never be needed, she said calmly. Every year that passed with humanity expanding peacefully was a victory for us. But hoping for peace doesn't negate the need to prepare for war. Below them, medical teams continued treating the injured while engineering crews worked to restore critical systems. Guardian soldiers patrolled the perimeter, their weapons and armor unsettlingly reminiscent of humanity's violent past. Your colony communications array is operational again, Vega continued. We've sent encrypted reports to Earth and the other major settlements. The response has been mixed. I imagine so, Maya said dryly. They just discovered that a secret military organization has been operating without oversight for 3 centuries. Some are calling for our immediate disbandment, Vega acknowledged with a thin smile. Others are grateful we existed when the Vorax arrived. The debate is becoming quite heated, but practical considerations are taking precedence. The unified Earth government has formally activated the Guardian Initiative and placed all colonial defense under our jurisdiction. So you're now officially in charge of my colony? Maya asked, bristling slightly. Of its defense, yes. Civil administration remains your domain, Governor. This partnership will function more smoothly if we each focus on our areas of expertise. Vega gestured toward the command center they had established in the administration building. My tactical team has completed their preliminary analysis of the Vorax attack. I believe you should join us for the briefing. Inside the repurposed conference room, Guardian officers had set up advanced holographic projectors that displayed 3-dimensional tactical data. Commander Chen was leading the briefing as Maya and Vega entered. Trajectory analysis confirms they're returning to this staging point, Chen was saying, indicating a star system 15 light-years distant. Long-range sensors detect approximately 30 additional vessels gathering there, including at least 3 Dreadnought-class ships. Vega took her place at the head of the table. Timeline. Based on their previous behavior patterns and fleet movements, we estimate they'll launch their second attack within 72 hours, replied Strategic Officer Reed. They're adapting their weaponry to counter our defensive capabilities. The next engagement will be significantly more challenging. Maya studied the holographic display, noting the positions of other human colonies relative to the Vorax staging area. They're threatening at least 5 other settlements, not just us. Correct, Reed confirmed. Novus Prime was merely the first target, likely selected because of its isolation and limited defensive infrastructure. They're clearly planning a coordinated assault on multiple human worlds. Then we need reinforcements, Maya said. How many more of these Guardian ships exist? Can we evacuate the colony? Vega shook her head. Evacuation is not an option. We lack sufficient transport capacity to relocate 10,000 civilians, and the nearest safe harbor is too distant. As for reinforcements, she paused. The Guardian Initiative maintained 20 major warships in hibernation. 7 are currently here. The others are being deployed to protect the most vulnerable settlements. So we stand and fight with what we have, Maya concluded. We do, Vega confirmed. However, there is one additional resource at our disposal. She nodded to Commander Chen. Chen activated a new holographic display, showing detailed schematics of Outpost Sentinel, but the diagrams extended far deeper into the mountain than the sections they had explored. Outpost Sentinel was not merely a command post, Chen explained. It was a complete forward operating base, including manufacturing facilities, training grounds, and an arsenal designed to support extended operations in contested territory. Dr. Remus leaned forward, studying the schematics with growing interest. These components, they're manufacturing systems for advanced weaponry. And these appear to be, are those mech suits? Correct, Chen said with the first hint of enthusiasm Maya had seen from any Guardian officer. Outpost Sentinel houses a complete production line for Paladin-class combat exoskeletons, along with other defensive technologies that were state-of-the-art 3 centuries ago. 3 centuries is a long time in technological development, Deputy Ashiro pointed out. Would these ancient weapons be effective against the Vorax? The basic principles of warfare haven't changed, Vega replied. And while civilian technology has advanced in areas like comfort, efficiency, and sustainability, military technology development effectively ceased after unification. The Guardian Initiative maintained research programs, but our resources were limited. In many ways, the equipment stored here represents the pinnacle of human military engineering. We've already begun activating the production facilities, Commander Chen added. With sufficient raw materials and power, we can arm and equip your entire surviving population within 48 hours. Maya looked shocked. My people are not soldiers, Commander. They weren't yesterday, Vega said quietly. Neither were the citizens of Earth during the resource wars, or the colonists who faced the first extraterrestrial microbiological threats. But when survival is at stake, humans adapt quickly. She stood, addressing the entire room. We have 72 hours before the Vorax return in force. In that time, we need to transform this colony from a vulnerable target into a fortress. Governor Santos, your people have valuable skills. Engineering, medicine, agriculture, sciences. We need to repurpose those talents for defense. Maya looked around the table at the mix of Guardian officers and her own colonial staff. The division between them was clear. One group trained for war, the other for peaceful expansion. Yet both were ultimately human, and both now faced the same existential threat. Very well, she said finally. What do you propose? Vega nodded to Commander Chen, who expanded the holographic display to show a comprehensive defense plan. We'll establish 3 defensive rings around the colony center. Guardian forces will form the outer perimeter, engaging the Vorax at maximum range. Colonial personnel with combat exoskeletons will form the middle layer, protecting critical infrastructure and providing tactical flexibility. And the inner ring? Maya asked. Your technical specialists, Vega replied. We've recovered data on Vorax communication systems and technology. Your scientists may be able to develop countermeasures or exploits that our military engineers wouldn't consider. This won't be won through firepower alone. We need innovation. The planning continued into the night, with Guardian officers working alongside colonial staff to transform theoretical defenses into practical preparations. Maya moved between groups, witnessing firsthand the strange fusion of her peaceful settlement with military precision. In the colony's manufacturing sector, Guardian engineers were reconfiguring fabrication systems to produce components for defense turrets. In the medical center, military doctors trained civilian personnel in combat trauma techniques. Throughout what remained of Novus Prime, people who had never imagined holding a weapon were learning basic combat protocols. Near midnight, Maya found herself in the depths of Outpost Sentinel, watching as ancient assembly lines hummed to life, producing the Paladin combat exoskeletons that Commander Chen had described. Each unit stood nearly 3 meters tall, with reinforced armor and integrated weapon systems. "Impressive, aren't they?" came Admiral Vega's voice from behind her. "Terrifying," Maya corrected, watching a completed exoskeleton step off the production line under its own power, guided by a Guardian technician. "I never imagined such things would be necessary." "No one ever does, until they are," Vega replied. She approached one of the inactive exoskeletons, running her hand along its armored shell. "My great-grandfather fought in the resource wars wearing an earlier version of these. He told my grandmother that he hoped they would someday be museum pieces, not battlefield necessities. And now they may be the difference between humanity's survival and extinction." Vega turned to face Maya directly. "Governor, I understand your reluctance to embrace military solutions. The peaceful vision of human expansion is noble and worthy of preservation. But that vision always depended on an unspoken assumption that we would never encounter a truly hostile intelligence bent on our destruction. The Vorax have forced our hand," Maya acknowledged. "But after this, if we survive, what then? Does humanity abandon 3 centuries of peaceful progress and revert to its militaristic past?" Vega considered the question carefully before answering. "Perhaps there's a middle path. The Guardian Initiative has always operated in secret, carrying the burden of vigilance so that the rest of humanity could pursue its ideals unfettered. That separation is no longer possible, but neither is a complete return to the past." She gestured toward the surface, where the remnants of the peaceful colony coexisted with military fortifications. "What emerges from this crucible may be a new synthesis, a humanity that preserves its highest aspirations while acknowledging the need for practical defenses, neither naively peaceful nor eagerly militaristic, but realistically prepared." Their conversation was interrupted by an urgent communication from the command center. "Admiral, Governor," came Commander Chen's voice. "Long-range sensors have detected anomalies at the edge of the system. The Vorax are returning earlier than projected, advanced scouts, most likely." Vega's expression hardened instantly, the brief philosophical moment replaced by military focus. "Sound general quarters. All Guardian personnel to battle stations. Commander Chen, deploy reconnaissance drones to track their approach vectors." She turned to Maya. "Governor, it appears our timetable has been accelerated. The enemy is probing our defenses, testing our response capabilities." "We're not ready," Maya said, looking at the partially completed defenses and training programs. "We never are," Vega replied grimly. "War rarely waits for optimal conditions, but ready or not, the Guardians have risen to meet this threat, and now your people must rise as well." Throughout the colony and the orbiting warships, alert klaxons sounded. Guardian forces moved with practiced efficiency to their assigned positions, while colonial personnel scrambled to implement half-completed defensive preparations. In the manufacturing sector, the production of combat exoskeletons accelerated to maximum capacity. Maya Santos watched through the command center windows as the first volunteer colonists were fitted with the imposing armor suits, transforming scientists, teachers, and engineers into the frontline defenders of humanity's fragile claim to the stars. Above them, the Guardian warships moved into defensive formations, their ancient weapons powering up to meet the approaching threat. The war for human survival had begun in earnest, and the long-hidden guardians of humanity were finally stepping fully into the light, bringing with them the martial legacy that civilization had tried so hard to forget. The second wave. The Vorak scouts arrived at the edge of the Novus system like shadows, their vessels using some form of adaptive camouflage that made them difficult to track on standard sensors. Only the Guardian ship's advanced detection systems could reliably pinpoint their positions as they conducted a methodical survey of the defensive perimeter. They're being cautious, Commander Chen observed from the tactical station in the colony's new command center. Minimal emissions, maintaining maximum distance. They're cataloging our defensive capabilities without engaging. Smart, Admiral Vega replied, studying the tactical display. They expected to find a devastated colony, not 7 Guardian-class warships and reconstructed planetary defenses. Governor Maya Santos watched the alien scouts with growing unease. In just 48 hours, Novus Prime had been transformed. Defensive turrets surrounded what remained of the colony, their angular profiles a stark contrast to the settlement's previously welcoming architecture. 3/4 of the surviving colonists had volunteered for combat training, many now wearing the intimidating Paladin exoskeletons that continued to roll off the ancient production lines deep within Outpost Sentinel. My science team has completed their preliminary analysis of the Vorax technology we recovered from the first attack, Maya said, gesturing to Dr. Kara Ewan, the colony's chief xenotechnologist, who had joined them at the command table. Dr. Ewan activated a holographic display showing detailed scans of Vorax weaponry and communication systems. Their technology is unusual, not necessarily more advanced than ours in absolute terms, but developed along completely different principles. They appear to utilize a form of semi-organic computing architecture that allows for rapid adaptation and evolutionary improvement, which explains why they're observing rather than attacking immediately, Vega concluded. Their systems are learning, evolving countermeasures to our defenses in real time. Exactly, Dr. Ewan confirmed. Every moment they spend scanning us provides more data for their adaptive systems. Comparing this to the readings we gathered during the initial attack, I believe they're focusing particular attention on your ship's shield frequencies and weapon signatures. Strategic Officer Reed nodded grimly. They're developing targeted countermeasures. When the main fleet arrives, they'll be specifically equipped to neutralize our primary advantages. Maya frowned, studying the tactical display where the Vorak scouts continued their methodical reconnaissance. Can we prevent this? Jam their transmissions or eliminate the scouts? We've tried jamming, Commander Chen replied. Their communications utilize some form of quantum entanglement, impossible to block with our current technology. As for eliminating them, he gestured to the display, where the scout vessels maintained positions just beyond effective weapons range. They're being careful to stay out of our engagement envelope. For 3 days, this tense standoff continued. The Vorak scouts maintained their distance, occasionally prodding the defensive perimeter with brief incursions before retreating. Guardian vessels responded with measured shows of force, careful not to reveal their full capabilities. On the colony surface, preparations continued at a frantic pace. Fortifications strengthened, civilians trained, and emergency protocols rehearsed. Maya spent these precious days moving between military briefings and civilian sectors, trying to maintain some sense of normalcy for her people even as they prepared for war. In what remained of the colony's central plaza, now surrounded by defense turrets, she found a group of children being instructed by a Guardian officer. Remember, the emergency shelters are color-coded, the officer was explaining, her stern military demeanor softening somewhat for her young audience. Blue for residential sectors, green for communal areas. When you hear the alert tone, you move quickly but calmly to the nearest shelter. Does everyone understand? The children nodded solemnly, their young faces showing a mixture of fear and fascination with the uniformed woman. One small boy raised his hand. "Are you going to kill all the aliens?" he asked directly. The officer hesitated, glancing up to see Maya approaching. "We're going to protect you," she answered carefully. "That's our mission." Governor Santos. Several children called, running to greet Maya. Despite everything, she managed a genuine smile for them, kneeling to speak at their level. "Are you being good students for Lieutenant?" She glanced at the officer's insignia. Lieutenant Rivera, the woman supplied. And yes, they're excellent students, very attentive to their safety protocols. The blue doors go to the bunkers under our houses, one girl explained proudly. And we're supposed to help the littler kids get there fast if the bad aliens come back. Maya nodded, maintaining her smile while her heart ached for these children, who should be learning about exploration and science, not emergency evacuations and alien invaders. That's exactly right. You're being very brave, all of you. After the children had been led away to continue their lessons, Lieutenant Rivera approached Maya. They adapt quickly, she observed. Children raised in space colonies develop resilience early. It's a survival trait in environments where a single system failure can be catastrophic. They shouldn't have to adapt to this, Maya replied, watching the children depart. Rivera's expression remained professional, but her eyes showed a glimpse of something deeper, perhaps regret. No one should. But throughout human history, children have endured wars they didn't start. All we can do is try to ensure they survive to build something better afterward. Maya was about to respond when alarms blared throughout the colony. Her communication implant activated automatically. "Governor," came Commander Chen's urgent voice. "The Vorax fleet has arrived." Multiple capital ships detected entering the system at high velocity. All civilians to emergency shelters immediately. From the command center, Maya watched the tactical display with growing dread as dozens of Vorax vessels materialized at the system's edge. Unlike the first attack force, this fleet moved with tight discipline, maintaining formation as they approached Novus Prime. 32 ships total, reported Officer Reed, including 5 Dreadnought-class vessels, substantially larger than anything in their first wave. Energy readings suggest significantly enhanced weapons and defensive systems. Admiral Vega stood at the center of the command platform, her calm demeanor unshaken by the overwhelming force arrayed against them. Deploy Guardian vessels in defensive pattern Echo. Primary focus on protecting the colony. Secondary objective is preserving our fleet capability for counterattack. Guardian warships moved into position, forming a protective screen around the planet. Marina watched as ship captains acknowledged their orders with the emotionless efficiency that characterized the Guardian forces. "They outnumber us more than 4 to 1, Maya observed quietly. "Numbers aren't everything in space combat," Vega replied, though her expression betrayed concern. "Position, timing, and tactical flexibility often matter more." The Vorax fleet continued its approach, maintaining perfect formation. When they reached the mid-system boundary, their advance abruptly halted. For several tense minutes, nothing happened. "They're waiting for something," Commander Chen said, monitoring the sensor readings. Energy spikes detected in their flagship, some sort of charging sequence. Suddenly, a brilliant beam of energy lanced out from the lead Vorax dreadnought, striking not at the Guardian vessels or the colony, but at an apparently empty region of space near the system's asteroid belt. "What are they targeting?" Maya asked, confused by this apparent waste of firepower. Her question was answered moments later as space itself seemed to ripple and distort. Where the energy beam had struck, a massive structure shimmered into visibility. A space station of unmistakably Vorax design that had somehow remained completely hidden from their sensors. "Cloaking technology," Reed breathed, clearly impressed despite the circumstances. "They established a forward base in our system during their first attack. Or before it," Chen added grimly. "They could have been watching us for months." The revealed station began disgorging smaller craft, hundreds of fighter-sized vessels that moved with insect-like coordination, forming attack wings that accelerated toward Novus Prime. "All Guardian vessels, engage incoming fighters," Vega ordered. "Planetary defense grid to full power. This is not a probe. This is their main assault." The space around Novus Prime erupted in chaos as Guardian warships engaged the approaching swarm. Point defense systems fired continuously, destroying dozens of Vorax fighters with each barrage, but the sheer numbers threatened to overwhelm them. "Fighters breaking through our outer defense line," reported Chen, his voice tense. Approximately 30 craft on approach to the colony. Activate ground-based interceptors, Vega commanded, and deploy our own fighter wings. Maya watched as launch bays opened on the Guardian vessels, releasing squadrons of human fighters. Unlike modern transport shuttles, these were purpose-built war machines, angular, heavily armed, and piloted by Guardian personnel who had trained for centuries for precisely this scenario. On the colony's surface, defense turrets tracked skyward, their targeting systems locking onto approaching Vorax craft. The first wave of alien fighters broke atmosphere, immediately encountering devastating fire from the hastily constructed defense grid. Several exploded in midair, but others adapted quickly, changing formation and altitude to minimize exposure. They're targeting our power distribution nodes, Chen reported as the tactical display showed alien fighters diving toward specific points in the colony perimeter. They've analyzed our defense grid and identified critical weak points. Deploy the Paladins, Vega ordered, turning to Maya. Governor, we need your volunteers now. Maya nodded grimly, activating her command channel. All exoskeleton units to defensive positions. This is not a drill. Throughout the colony, civilians wearing the imposing Paladin combat suits moved into pre-assigned positions. Scientists, engineers, and administrators who days earlier had never held a weapon now stood as the last line of defense, their exoskeletons providing both protection and combat capability. The first Vorax ground forces descended in drop pods that punctured the colony's defense perimeter. Unlike the warriors from the initial attack, these aliens emerged in formidable battle armor that resembled their ship's organic mechanical aesthetic. They moved with coordinated precision, targeting critical infrastructure and defensive emplacements. They've improved their ground tactics, observed Lieutenant Rivera, who had joined the command center staff after evacuating her young charges. They're avoiding direct confrontation with our strongest positions, instead focusing on systematic degradation of our defensive capability. The battle expanded across the colony and surrounding territory. Guardian soldiers engaged Vorax forces with professional efficiency, their centuries of training evident in every movement. Colonial volunteers in Paladin suits provided critical support, their local knowledge of the terrain compensating for their limited combat experience. Maya monitored the tactical feeds with growing concern as more Vorax forces landed. Despite the colonists' brave resistance, the aliens were gradually pushing inward, sector by sector. In orbit, Guardian vessels fought valiantly against overwhelming numbers, inflicting serious damage on the Vorax fleet, but taking losses of their own. Admiral, Maya said quietly, approaching Vega at the command station, we're losing ground. At this rate, they'll breach the central sectors within hours. Vega's expression remained impassive, but her eyes betrayed a grim calculation. You're correct, Governor. Conventional tactics won't be sufficient. We need to change the parameters of this engagement. She turned to Strategic Officer Reed. The asteroid belt operation, is it prepared? Reed nodded. All elements are in position, but the timing is critical, and we'll have only one opportunity. Explain, Maya demanded, sensing a significant development. Vega gestured to the tactical display, highlighting the asteroid belt that circled the stars several million kilometers beyond Novus Prime's orbit. While the Vorax have been focusing on our visible defenses, we've been conducting a more subtle operation. 3 days ago, we deployed specialized mining units to the largest asteroids in the belt, along with modified gravity generators. Understanding dawned on Maya. You're going to use the asteroids as weapons. As a diversion, Vega corrected. The Vorax fleet is committed to this attack vector, with minimal reserves held back. If we can disrupt their formation, even briefly, it might create an opening for a decisive counterstrike. Commander Chen entered new commands into the tactical system, and a simulation appeared showing the planned operation. The gravity generators will alter the trajectories of 17 major asteroids, creating what appears to be a natural hazard that threatens the Vorax fleet's position. They'll be forced to either break formation to avoid the asteroids or expend significant energy to destroy them. Either way, it disrupts their attack coordination. Maya studied the simulation with growing interest. When? Now, Vega said, nodding to Chen. Execute Operation Avalanche. Chen transmitted the activation codes, and across the asteroid belt, concealed gravity generators powered up to maximum. Massive rocky bodies that had maintained stable orbits for billions of years suddenly shifted, accelerating toward the space between Novus Prime and the Vorax fleet. The effect wasn't immediately apparent, but within minutes, sensors detected the Vorax command vessels transmitting urgent communications to their fleet. The alien formation began to shift as their tactical systems identified the approaching threat. They've detected the asteroids, Reed confirmed. Response patterns suggest they initially classified it as a natural phenomenon, but they're now recognizing the artificial trajectory adjustments. They'll adapt quickly, Vega predicted. We have perhaps 5 minutes before they develop a coordinated response. That's our window. She activated the fleet command channel. All Guardian vessels, prepare for Operation Spearhead. Primary targets are their command and control nodes. Ground forces to consolidate and hold current positions. The Guardian warships abruptly changed tactics, disengaging from their defensive posture around the planet and accelerating toward the temporarily disrupted Vorax fleet. It was a bold, potentially suicidal maneuver, but if successful, it might disrupt the aliens' coordinated assault long enough to turn the tide. Governor, Vega said, turning to Maya, I'll be joining the space operation. Commander Chen will coordinate ground defense with you. Without waiting for a response, she strode from the command center, a team of officers following in her wake. She's personally leading the counterattack. Maya asked, surprised. Admiral Vega was an assault specialist before she was elevated to command, Chen explained, and Guardian doctrine emphasizes leadership from the front when circumstances are dire. Minutes later, Maya watched as a command shuttle launched from the colony, racing to rendezvous with the Guardian flagship. The tactical situation continued to evolve rapidly. Vorax vessels scrambling to address both the asteroid threat and the suddenly aggressive Guardian fleet. In the confusion, a Guardian strike team led by Vega herself boarded the Vorax command vessel. The mission was as audacious as it was dangerous, a direct attempt to access the aliens' command systems and disrupt their coordinated attack. If successful, it would throw the entire Vorax fleet into disarray. If it failed, humanity would lose one of its most valuable leaders. For 30 agonizing minutes, Maya and the command staff monitored the operation through fragmented data and intermittent communications. On the ground, Novus Prime's defenders held their positions, preventing further Vorax advancement, but unable to reclaim lost territory. Then, abruptly, the pattern of the battle changed. Vorax ground forces that had been advancing with coordinated precision suddenly faltered, their movements becoming erratic and uncoordinated. In orbit, several alien vessels fired on their own allies, while others ceased operations entirely. They did it, Chen said, allowing himself a rare smile. Admiral Vega's team must have successfully compromised their command network. The tactical display showed the Guardian fleet pressing its advantage, concentrating fire on now vulnerable Vorax vessels. Without their coordinated defense systems, the alien ships suffered catastrophic damage from weapons they had previously withstood. Guardian Actual to Colony Command, came Vega's voice, distorted by interference but recognizable. Vorax Central Command compromised. We've inserted a cascading failure into their network. Effect is temporary. Estimate 20 minutes before their secondary systems compensate. All forces press the advantage. Throughout the colony, defenders surged forward, reclaiming territory sector by sector as the Vorax troops struggled with compromised communication and coordination systems. In orbit, the Guardian fleet systematically targeted and destroyed Vorax vessels, focusing on their largest and most dangerous ships first.